or an unskillful action to bring us live. But I don't know, he says like here is just relying on the gods of this world, but in Tibetan we don't have that word. Okay? So this is different like a napochok. Napochok means like napochok means leaning towards negative beings. He says negative being, but he didn't say gods. I don't know. Anyway, so they here, like relying on negative person, okay, negative source, sort of like negative source. That means like there are two types of like activities. Because of that, two types of negative activities. Because of that, the result of that, then we are experiencing this kind of situation, this moment. So, right, for instance, relying on, here it says God is relying on like a negative person, okay? Negative person means like, so we associate with negative person, okay? So they always constantly like engaging into negative actions. So when we associate with this kind of person, then it's like, it influences us to do the same thing. Okay, so then relying on like an unskillful kind of source, sort of like, okay. Then the napochok, or the negative aspect that could be like your own actions, okay. Not only relying on this kind of person, that kind of source, but you do like carry on the same negative activities, so you do by yourself. Because of that, so then whatever we perform at this moment is not affecting. It's not effective. But it doesn't mean that when we do prayer, when we perform some rites or ritual to overcome your problem, it doesn't mean that the Buddhas and those beings, holy beings, doesn't have any power to help you to overcome that kind of problem. It doesn't mean that. So it's not affecting, it's not working at that moment because of your heavy bad karma. So that's why. So when we have that kind of situation, we should not blame on gods, or we should not blame on the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and all the deities, because you don't see the result at this moment. Because of that, you should not blame on them. So this is only not happening. It's not working because of your heavy karma. So we have been associated with negative person, and we also carry the same actions, activities, what we learn from them.
Di santene rangi kunjo dan chöla ya le ma jebeje kunjo dan chöla yiji ma jebeje ani karesure lo rangulu tu jesati jawangam rangulu tu jesati nabu chola lamdu jinye di kansa ta ne nabu chola yi de karesure ani dije braba dije ani kunjo sumbe chola ani yiji de karesure mebje ani chola karesure chola samlo matambaje chola yiji karesure chola sanje da chola yiji jene ani cho majeba karesure cho majeba lembares chola samlo matamba lembares ta kanje anan tandati ringdu jene mapemba ji kunjola swatamne mapemba ti jowangamanam sorangi ji basa ji lam imba twenye kansa tang di ani lam karesure lam ngembala karesure ta jawa maimbala yiji jen jawa maimba jenja che ani kunjola yiji ta kunjo lam dunam chola yiji majeba dedale chola karesure nyamsu maramba di chebaris ta kanje ta tanda di karesure kunjola swatamne mepe remdu jene mepe bati jawangamanam su rangi kunjo tang ani di labjala yiji jene nyame ma che ba di lembare
So then again, so when we perform rites or when we make a sincere kind of prayer to Buddha or the high enlightened person, so this seems like it's not working. So then we feel like they are not kind, there's something wrong with this kind of source. It's not affecting to me. It's not working with me. So we have all kinds of like negative thoughts towards this kind of holy objects, holy beings. So so we should not develop that kind of negative attitude towards those kind of holy beings. So it's not that they do not have that kind of power. They do not have any the compassionate mind or something like that. So they have power. They do have like compassionate mind all the time. They're always constantly looking for like help, looking to help sentient beings all the time. But when we make a sincere prayer or like rites or like the rites or they perform any ritual, so but it doesn't work because of our own heavy negative the karma. So then this is not happening because one reason is like, so we have been like, so they have, for instance, from the Buddhist point of view, so the Buddha gave us all the instruction, taught us how to overcome negativities and how to prevent to bring any negative experience in the future. He have taught like all the instruction. So so in the previous lifetime and in many lifetimes, we always engage in the exact opposite of the advice. We always against the advice. Whatever we do, all the actions actually against to his instructions. So then it means, so then we tend to go under or like take refuge under unskillful beings, and we tend to like that, and also we do carry this kind of act whatever we have received wrong, the wrong teaching or wrong method to help yourself. So we have received we have received many of like wrong instruction from like wrong being. So then we have been like doing this like all the time. So because of that, and it's really difficult to receive any benefit from those holy beings when we make a sincere, even though we may make a sincere prayer or sincere kind of like ritual or whatever towards to ask whatever we ask help from those holy beings. And also here says that this is the will of sharp weapon returning full circle upon your upon us from wrong we have done. Okay, wrong is like Lengen is like a negative deeds, okay, negative karma. So we have there's the sharp weapon. Sharp weapon is an example of the wrong, like a misdeed or the wrong activities or bad karma. Okay, so we took that example as the sharp weapon because sharp weapon is meant to cut off things, right? To like chop off like things and stuff like that. So our bad karma actually cuts off our welfare or happiness. So they have like a similar kind of function. So those we took the example and we put this example in these words.
Sanjay Nubata Rangi Ji Karasure Rangi Devadam Sanjay Nubata Rangi Devata Rangi Ji Java Sampuchi Tumut Jenandrone Jubilar Mishuji Sanjay Nuba Yune and Rangi Sanjay Galata Tumbat Margina Karasure Sanjay Chilip Juya Yamari. These are Rangatani Jim Sanjay Chilip Juya Juna, that's Didi Sanjay Soatania Jemasun San Jemasun Jayarva. These are Sanjay Jugol Rale Mare Aranzu Digiti Sanjay Jugol Ram Marevache. Sanjay Lamduna Banashi, Sanjay Suatayata, Sante Lamduna Shabat Nashinchini, Rang Sundi to Jenny, Tubuyare. Again, sir, any Sanjay Suatame, Sanjay never famous in Kuratavian memory. Carasidity, any Rangi Nagi Jeburi. That's Sanjay Suatabatanchi. Rimtu Cherti, Mahobana, Karsuri, Rangi, Tomato Maimba, Mahobana Tiki, Julu Tugari, Tanda Tel Nebetel, Apiati, Nargi, Rangi Leti, Chevrava, Tada Bichi, Kangi Dantos Kanga, Rangis, Cheshap Janjaimbri. Mahobana Tiki Duna, Mahobana Tiki Duvina. Sendele Jawa Sambutu, Jawa Sambutu, Nebechoti. Upon Ganduche, Sambucho de Tukaduche, Tati Mahobana, Chashi of the Diri, Titun and Rubiari, Digiti. Tade Digiti, Pecho, the Namas, Rang Suishar, Rang Tikanete, the Nar Rang Suishar, Rang Digi, the Nar Rang Suishar, Chimbre. Ani Dilish Gutoshida time maybe in Bretachi, there's a pair in Guyarba, Nitini, Rang Jesha studied it. Mahobana, Tandapunjola Sovata, and Jebati, Payme ever my painty, and Mahobana, the Guyaris.
So then, when we talk about the welfare of yourself and happiness of yourself, your happiness, so that is actually that has to come from two different forces, sort of like we said, two different forces. One, we need to have a blessing or guidance from the enlightened beings. For instance, here is like the Buddha. Okay, Buddha. As that is not enough, that is not efficient to have the happiness for yourself. Your happiness is not totally relying on that source. So you have to be like actively, participate into that kind of the source or conditions too. Understand? That could be like your faith, belief, faith in the Buddhas. Faith in Buddha means the faith in Buddha's instruction, Dharma. So we have to have that kind of entity as well to bring happiness in your life. So that is actually believing in Buddha means believing in his instruction, his teaching. So his teaching, man of his teaching is his teaching instruction is not to harm any sentient beings. So that we need to carry in your daily practices. If you bring those two factors or those two conditions together, then that will bring happiness for you. That's why we should not imagine that the Buddha is going to take care of everything. So so he has compassion and he has skillful method, but we need to have our own kind of volunteer kind of activities as well. So then it works. And then if you make a prayer, if you do some kind of ritual, then it's work. It's work in that way. So then, and also, so for many times when we do prayer, when we make really sincere kind of prayer to Buddha, so it seems like many times we do not have the result right away. So we do not experience result right away. So that is mainly, in general speaking. So this life, this life is much like pretty much, and it's already sort of like programmed, so already like in the process of result. Okay, so we cannot change it like much. So, but if you make a prayer, if you do something, they do change a little bit, but you cannot change like totally sort of like, you cannot do it because it's like in the result kind of process. So we already have created the karma to experience this life. So we cannot do much, but we have fully control in the future. So if you make a prayer at this moment when you have a problem, so it may not affect, it may not overcome your problem at that moment, but that moment where we are experiencing difficulties and suffering, that is actually a result of another bad karma. So if you make a prayer at that moment, if you do some kind of the virtuous activities at that moment, so that activities, that virtuous deeds will bring benefit, bring happiness, but may not bring happiness, may not affect at that moment, but it will bring in the future. So that's why we need to prepare for the future. So in the future, welfare of your future and happiness, you have total kind of like control over it. So you can manipulate and you can make your own. You can kind of like you can design your future welfare. You can make it. So that's why we have fully control at this moment. So we need to consider more about your future welfare and future happiness, so we can do much about this life.
Oh yeah, and the tiny darling green is jealous. Rang green, susu green, susu in jealous. Tiny darling green is. Nika sure, shiny sushi green sky. Rang green, rang me should be shen suji amarichere. Rang yapu channel. Rang yapu yungerva, rang tuchena, ni rang kangen trigger, just a tiny dog in green city, Pejana tiny dog green is jeffrey. And it and do Tade Galon Buchi, Chimayam to my Jurang city. Tata Name Tade Milurinjiti Nama Chimberes. Tata Maum Beg Digiti, Tata Susul 2 years. Just a Tade Galon Buchi, Chimayam to Majur Asiati. Caviar, just a tiny dog in green city. Rangi Chigueta, Rangi Chava Sangi Ongi, any ticket Rangi Gwingapti Sures and Rangi Apuchan, Chimangas only cover. Rangi Apu Machin, Chimangas on Tuluya. What is a Dangi Dag Greens? What is just a two the Ralevi? Shenda Diki Siati, Shenda Chile Ravachani, Diki Memory, Diki Siat Rangi to Guru. China Diki Duna, Tanda Gyorangi to Guru. Chima Tunga Menduna, Ani Gyawapa, Kursa Miguel, Juve, Le, Nemba Chia the Paya. Diki Revayasan, Les Ambujiati. Need to be a party, she will get a chesa. Rangi Digi can run 2 days. Is any Chesa Thunder, a language Jarana Koyas, Ranaki, a Ganget Herdi, Rangi Naralesa, Lang Basasha, Digi, Tirana Corres level. Chesa Rang Digi can run 2 beams. Chesa. Karasugure Digi Kanga Rana to the Habovati Nani, Shella Rimdujen, Mepine, Tichia Marva, Guadavia Mari, Sanjel Soatamni, Digi Majumati, Rangichevi, Rimdujen, Rana Mepimati, Rangichevi, Chasa, Kangalo Ran to Venesa, some Titangi Nani, Rana Kangachung. Kangen Tepati, some Kangen Matayati, Pendoya.
So then in the text, it says, in Tibetan it says, Dani Daguin. Dani Daguin is like, so you are the ultimate protector of yourself, or or you can say like, I am the protector, ultimate protector of myself, something like that. You can say that. So that is true, because so whatever you experience, difficulties or happiness, difficulties or happiness, everything is actually created by yourself. So you cannot blame to other. Even though you experience happiness, you cannot, so your own welfare or your own happiness, you cannot imagine, you cannot think that this something is going to bring to you. So you have to create, you have to make yourself happy. Okay, so nobody is going to bring you happy. And also your own problems and your own suffering. So you are the one responsible for your own your own problems. You have created bad karma. So that's why you are having experience. We don't blame to anybody for your own problems. So that's why we call like if you wanted to like get out of this kind of problem or situation, so you are the only one who can help you. You are the only one who can protect you from that kind of problems. So no one else can do that. So this is you. So that's why we need to realize that you. So how like powerful stuff like yourself. So you can do. So you can do whatever you want. Stuff like. And also in the other text, it says like so the expression in like Tibetan expression, it says the kindness of the previous lifetime I have obtained the human rebirth. Okay, so you are actually praising yourself, sort of like the kindness of the previous lifetime I have obtained, I have achieved this human life. Now this human life don't let me down to the lower end for the next life. So it means like again it's the same kind of like a meaning. It has the same meaning. So you are the one who can bring happiness for yourself. So that's why if you have like a problems, we should not like blame to others. So you are the one who have created that kind of problems. And also here in this text it says so the circle up, the full circle of us from wrong we have done. Okay, so then again so your own problems, right? Your own problems. So we need to think. Let me say that whatever you have problems, you have like suffering and everything, you should take blame on yourself. If you do that, if you're able to do that, instead of blaming other, then you will be much happier. You will be like much more like the positive person. Otherwise, if you blame to other, so you get like more and more kind of like problems. It gets like more and more problems if you blame other. If you blame yourself, then it reduces your like difficulties and like suffering yourself.
There Sanjay Gandu Lapjana share, Lapja DG Majes, what did the Tumbaji Jeshavani around the DG and around the Kangachegi and Barba. Lapjana Yatita Sanjay Lapja Navare. Lapja di Dumiti Aranzura. Lapjana Shavati Lale Kang Randu, Jessa Randu Lale that in Norni, any Kangachegi, Tisa. Kangi di suji teba ke mare sanji kunjo teba mari misheng teba mari kange rang severi kange rang severi chikare sene sanje gi di jebore timachi sung shaba lapchana shaba ti rangi abu madu ba tinsa rang kange kanga khareji ne ji kuluna shaba mari mi shen ji ran te shaba mari ti sam pa tan ne kange the kanga rang je shaba mari rodi sa ti sam dang yeres.
So that's why it says Buddha is like a teacher. So only if you wish to free from your own suffering, so you are the one. So you are the one who needs to do the practice. So like Buddha gave us all the instruction how to overcome such thing, like kind of like such the problems and the difficulties and suffering. But the only we need to put that into practice. If we do that, then we will be able to overcome your own suffering. Otherwise, so Buddha is not going to bring happiness to you. He's not going to present. He's not going to pass on his happiness to us. And practically, it's like really it's really obvious, sort of like I'm saying. So you cannot do that because Buddha has all the skillful methods and all complete kind of happiness. But we are in this kind of situation. This is really clear kind of indication that he cannot transform. He cannot pass on his happiness to us. So this is really, that's why we need to do the practice. Okay? So then the new has again. Sanjay did the chair on my responsibility, and then the chair was right? And then the chair was.
Sanjay said, "My mission chair, my youngest step in your sticky ganga,
So then again, so like really kind of like easy to understand, sort of like, easy to understand is like, so when we look like carefully, your own problems, right? Your own problems. So many of the time, all the time, sort of all the time, these are misunderstanding. So this is misunderstanding. Nobody gives you suffering. So you make that suffering for yourself. You just interpret it in like a different way, negative way, and you misunderstand like something. Then you have like problems. You suffer something like that. And also it's just because all your suffering is actually a result of your misguidance or misuse of like the teaching of Buddha, sort of like that, something like that. So then so when we look at the situation, your problem, everything, when we look really deep, clearly, like really, like when you analyze, then you will understand, you will realize that everything is actually caused by yourself. There's no any external force. You cannot find any external force. Whatever you have like problems, so it could be like some kind of a misunderstanding or maybe a misinterpretation or something's mistake, something's wrong from your side. That's why you have that kind of problems. When you do the kind of like a thoroughly kind of investigate your own problems, you will find that you are the only source that brings unhappy state of mind.
Tatine samne tongne kums tati tige samne ya tongne kums yati tadarangi chi remdu chete ta lo tu sukangalo leng be ngar leng be sabe tirba ti bayasa ta susule kange chebana shi semje shindale kange mabu chebdinde ingirba tande rara never nawati chine never ta kanyi koja yinju tamba kunjolo soatamne madu ani ji rimdu chele ya mabin bachani be kange thigirba dide thesu ani shu del samnu tige tansani ya ta tongne kumsitu rana kange theya tu surang lenge ba jebanashi tati kange ngal chebanashi ngal che sabe mambu yari maambana chegyu mambu yari tige kange teta rang chu ave nabu chu le nabu nabala ne ini rangi ji kewadang sem sambala soba dindi je shabudu pa tangya di lu da long ju tangya ta tongne kumse diri tongne chigi na rangi leng bati dentu ji keng kar sugre ta ji ran kangi chi theba yarba kangi ti thebe dentu sheng kangi thande dinda kangi thanje rangi kangi ti dindul chule shekangi le dresu nyamba je ta rangi chi digi kanga lu da long ju la soba pa tangyan me je ane simje to su pe digi ane digi te jemba kange thamje te teni digi te demba chung sun sambara je ta tongne kumya te dire.
So again, the main practice of this teaching is a Donglen practice, right? So we need to do the Donglen meditation each of the end of the each of verses, right? This is the kind of like the general kind of practice of this text. So again, I must say we need to do a Donglen practice after this meditation, after this verse. So that will be like, so you can imagine, Donglen means like the giving and taking, okay, giving and taking, right, taking practice. So exchanging, giving and taking. So here, so you can imagine, so you have if you fall into that kind of situations, you have some problem, you try to overcome it, like doing some kind of the positive methods, making a prayer, such as like making a prayer or performing a rites or ritual, whatever that could be, but you end up with like no result of this kind of whatever you engaged into this the positive actions, positive deeds. But at that moment you will suffer, like so you have like an unsatisfaction kind of the moment. So at that moment, so you do practice of dawning again. So you imagine that there are many other beings have like the same situation, and bringing their suffering in smoky kind of a color and inhaling yourself, and it destroys your self-cherishing, yes, self-cherishing. Then you send out a white light on, and that is white light is actually the essence of all your good qualities. That will be like your virtues, positive karma, anything you can imagine. So send it out, so when you take upon all the sufferings from the sentient beings, sort of like sentient being, then you are helping them to free from their suffering, And when you're giving away your the virtues, the happiness to other, then you're providing them happiness, sort of like, meeting them with, helping them to meet with their own happiness. So then you send out all the lights and white light and stopping them, they enjoy your virtues, your happiness, and sort of like that. So you do this kind of exercise, mental exercise, or practice, or meditation.
Tatini atone sukumanuna tat karasure. Tinde kengi tinde rala kengi chedeva nashi chini kengi chedeva mambuchi yari sang. Dosu kengi pe kangi chedeva dosu ngendi gocheva sho. Shena titabu kangi mijuwa shos. Kanji kan nge kange digi kange digi semje shinge kange tangje nge digi kwe chuwa sho shianda di tabu kange minjuwa sho se malam jadi jenata tongne se mare di ko kenge lamdu kirwa se yati dindiri jasa nge digi kwe chuwa sho shianda dindiri di tabu kange me sho se na 이 갱은 남도 캐러와스게 갱님 버디 남로 캐셔버리 샘삼부지를 봐. 갱님 버디 갱제네 샘삼부지 주중을. 나디 다 가르수래. 근데 샘삼부세야 됐다. 추자와 샘삼부디 임베 저선 단데디 랑리 갱네 티체벨 때니 샘삼부지 주중을 봐. Shengi kange tamje nyendi goy chuba sho. Shiana ditabu kange mijuwa sho chebra. Oti tatongne ya maguna dili samdani dili yes.
So the Tonglen practice of giving and taking, exchanging, giving and taking, is kind of like the advanced practice. Advanced practice. Sometimes when you do meditation, this kind of meditation, it scares you. And also, you are not comfortable. You feel like uncomfortable with doing this kind of mental exercise, this kind of practice. This sometimes it terrifies you. So if you are not comfortable with that, so you don't need to do that. So you don't have to do that. You don't have to do the Dharma practice. Okay. So still, there are another practice you can do, like so it's really similar, but it's not real or actual Dharma practice. Something like when you have a problem, right? When you have problems, when you're going through like suffering. So you may not, you may not able to take all the sufferings of the sentient beings on you, but at least you can. So that another type of practice is called the Genge Lamdu Khyalwa. Means Genge Lamdu Khyalwa means taking suffering into the path, okay, into the practice, sort of like into the practice. It means that you are having a really negative kind of experience at that moment, so you can transform that experience into positive way, positive, actions. Positive experience, sort of like. So that is like when you have problem, when you have difficulties. So even though you may not be able to take the sufferings of the sentient beings, still at least you can imagine that there are many people having like same kind of situation, same problem, and wish them to not have that kind of problem. Wish them to free from that kind of suffering, that kind of problem. So if you do that, so you may have like an experience of a suffering, but you can transform, you can change that into positive, positive way, in a positive way, and in a positive practice. So at least you can do that. If you cannot do the actual Tonglen practice.
Oh, did it? Just the teacher in a gang and could you test on the church of Kuman Chimbri? Gang the gang bate du sema shumje devina ani semna kange chirwa tinde samna tamina semna kange mathebali khebayari ani kange chirdi chug thingi le chingari chug kolatene kange tibala tene chug nane tedere sem sambu chinge kange semna shen le didabu kange me juwa sho semna te sem samburba odi 진지 조사 니코 강내 제버디 된다 침부지 쪽에 제상 딘디 상 땡비아리스.
So then if you able to change your kind of like mental attitude, right? Mental attitude towards your suffering. So like when you have suffering, you imagine suffering for others. Okay. So if you do that, instead of thinking of yourself, if you think of like others suffering, that is, we call it samsambo. Samsambo is like a noble mind, sort of a noble mind. That mind is the best mind you can develop, sort of. So you can develop. This is the best mind, you know. So the concerning about other, you know, thinking of like welfare of other, you know, thinking of like sufferings of other, you know, free them from like sufferings. So this kind of mind, this kind of thoughts are really the best, you know, the mind you can develop, sort of like, you know, in Tibetan called samsambo, like best samsambo. Samsambo means like a noble mind or positive mind. So if you were to do that, then you can transform your negative, you know, the experience into positive experience, you know, and also your own suffering, your own difficulties actually kind of like encourage you to develop positive thoughts.
어디에 begina 더 초승스 펜데난 거 가만쇼스 두나 그런 게 동네 크루스 동네 잡주 캠바쇼스 기브 중순에 더 초승스 기브 중순에 랑기브 중순에야 신다래 랑기 디기야 딘데 시향을 용쇼스 제만은 개다 랑기 디기 디샹다 또야 네 펜디나는 강화쇼스 나를 디기 주안나 시현에 디기 주니 시 탐제 강에 탐제되는 디기 표소저가 용화쇼스 제 마음 겨위나 그래서 기는 더 초승로 펜디나는 그 강화쇼스 제제 누나 군기 등에 코스 강내 최소는 군기 등에 삼단 신다 등에 강내 삼단 아니 디 강내 신다 강내 등에 디 고여주 마셔스 아니 등에 자주 겜 마셔스 거의 자주 나 이제 배신제 탐지 그 등에 매버쇼 제 돈을 군기 등에 코스 등에 자주 겜 마셔스 어디에 제사
So then we can do like do a similar practice of bodhisattvas, sort of like, you know, so when bodhisattvas have a happy, joyful kind of experience, the happiness kind of experience, they are always dedicated for like others. You know, so they imagine they are making a prayer that one of the prayer lines they are saying, you know, so whatever I have experienced of like happiness, I want to feel that experience entire universe. They make that kind of prayer. And also when they have problems, when they go through like difficulties, then they imagine they are making prayer and they're also wishing and they wanted to like feel and they wanted to take all the sufferings of the sentient beings, and also they're making a prayer that by having this experience, I wish, you know, the sufferings of the samsara, the oceans, the suffering of the oceans, they dry up the oceans of suffering. Dry up the oceans of suffering because of my own suffering. They do that kind of, they carry that kind of thoughts all the times. Whether they have like happiness, they dedicate it for others. When they have like difficulties, going through difficulties, they also dedicate it for others.
That's it. That's Chole dobachas de dujurwa. Tani nabi chole dobachas yadi tanda kange chayati ani ji jawangana namsu nabi chole nabi chole pe ji nabi chole be karasure nabi karasure nabi chole yi de ne ji nabi chole yan be ba chema ne karasure chao ma yin ba chen je ba di ne ba ba yin sa tani nabi chole do ba cha tani ani chun ma yin be di be cha ba di le cha mi ge wa di le ani do ne 아니 담배추 주버자스 다니 나비초레 도버자스 나비초레 도니 되니 담배추 예시 가르수리 셰베기 장니 지군에 나네 아니 저 상불은 주버 지인 상르치
So then in text verse number 32 hereafter, let's turn in another direction and leave our non-virtuous action behind, right? So that is napucho. Again, napucho. Napucho here they translate as non-virtuous action. Okay, non-virtuous action. So again, we have realized all your problems and everything is because of your non-virtuous actions. So that's why. So we're going to turn away from that kind of non-virtuous actions. So it means like I'm going to. So we're making like commitment. So I'm going to engage into virtuous actions in order to bring benefit in the future. And I'm going to turn away from the non-virtuous action in order to eliminate your problems in the future. So yeah, so it goes like that.
Teacher. Tata kunjo sumda soa matepe, riba. Kunjo sumda soa matepsi. Sanje para iji majebe, lengen chunja rangla koa yins. Tatire kunjo sumda soa matepsi. Tati 다 군조 숨 세다 군조 숨 세대 산게 군조 시제 주 군조제 긴주 군조가 다 디제 소아 마텝체 시드 소아 타바디체 아니 소아 타바나 힘만두가티 소아 메테버바 어디 소아 마텝 나체 아다티 상게 발이 이지 마제베 랭게 추자 다 소았다니 소아 마테버티 아니 가르제베스네 아니 상제를 이지 마제베 아니 랭네 춘지다라 코아리스레버다티.
So then the next verse number 33, in page number 4, when none of the wish we make reach fulfillment, right? Although we have made prayers to the three precious gems, or the three jewels, or the three ragnas. This is the will of show reverence and preserve our now. Till now we have had an imperfect commitment, right? Commitment to Buddha, whose teaching deserves complete trust. So we are at that verse.
다지 다군조스나 소아티지 다티 군조스나 소아타 다카레스나 랑기 자와스 데 쳔부지두두 잠바 자와 쳔부지두두 군조를 추바제 지기르바 자와디 두야기 제도 군조를 추바제 군조를 만남다 지기르바 디르테나 다디 제브레데 자와디 주베니바 야마르바 자와 마두바 용구르바 디르테나 다 가르쳐버렸으네. 아니 산지 라리아 르람버베 산지 가르수그레 산지를 저메버베 산지기 지 라르 자와디 마두르레 어디 세베이나 다디 소마데베 디 소답자 소마테브레스 소마데베 가르스네 상제리 이제 랑기 경만 상제리 이제 마치베게 아니 랭님버티 라라 코아리스 다티
So then here it says, when none of the wish I make reach fulfillment. So like usually when we are when we going to begin big the task or activities, we tend to make a prayer to enlightened beings. In this case, so we make a prayer to three jewels or three ratnas. So it could be like a spiritual kind of activities. It could be non-spiritual activities. It could be anything. But we begins with like a prayer to complete, success in your activities, right? So then many times we end up with misfortune, like we don't succeed in like whatever we aimed for, like something like that. So then when we rest, like then we have like we develop kind of all kinds of like doubts in your mind. So is this like something's wrong with? We may think like is this like all the three ratnas or the jewels, the three jewels may not have, and do not they so they just like maybe like you think like they don't have like compassion or something like that, okay? They don't have compassion mind or something. They are not like they may not possess any power to help me, or so you may raise that kind of like doubts in your mind, right? And you may think like maybe they are not trustworthy, right? Trustworthy. So you have like all kinds of like doubts in your thoughts. So again, as I said, so that is not because of them. So when we try to do something, and in the beginning we make a prayer to Buddhas, to the jewel, then we end up with like exact like unsuccessful kind of like result. Then that is not because of them. So again, we need to look inward, like we need to look for ourselves.
아니 로타마제 로테체 티페 상겔레 지라메 페이메 데버멘도 데메레 삼바틴데 지비아마레 제베레.
So when you have that kind of situation, you should not think that the Buddha three jewels, for instance here, in this case, three jewels, they don't have power. They may not have any power, they may not have any compassion, mind, thoughts, intention, and they are not like trustworthy. So you should not generate any negative thoughts towards those three jewels.
Oh, Sanjela, Soatavata, Chevata, to Sui, Karasure, Deme Mari, Kewasambu Jevati, around Maoban and Devi, Shashia, Kevis, Javasambu Jevi, son, Maobala Digi, Savage, Doubly, Chesa, Demeva Mari, Penny Meva Mari, Jino Meva Mari. Inia Tata Suat of Shabati, Tim Mandruba, Tim Mandrubati, Kalari Mishu, Java Meva Mari, Tandayari, Maobana Digi Uguri, Penny Uguri. Maobana Digi Tungari, never never married Digi Tungaris.
So again, if you have some kind of problem, something like that, so if you're going to start some kind of business or some activities, you make a prayer. If you make a prayer to Buddhas, seek any help from them. So that activities is like a positive activities. It's a positive, virtuous activities. So that virtuous activities definitely brings positive results. So you should not imagine, you should not think that this is a waste of like the time or waste of any like activities. So that activities, the positive activities bring benefits in the future. So may not bring benefit in like that moment, whatever you aim for, like at that moment. But that action, that positive action will bring, so the happiness.
Rangla Chi Soa Matavati, Sanjali Nivame, Anishu, Tindigis, Sanjali Chu, Tindasunjani, Nevayamari, Takandi Yiji Majabegi, Nevati Chungrava. Tari Chuba Chevala, Tinid, 제네 아니 딘디기 이지 맞제버체 아니 네버 메버리스 딘디스 제베는 마오바네 강에 디기미체도 돼야 봐. 그래서 날 강에 제버디 텔레 이지 맞제 아니 지 이지 맞제베 온 주아라 봐. 단디 이지 맞제버체는 마오바네 이지 디 랭이 데브디 그러봐.
So again, so you should think that if you develop some kind of distrust, okay, and disrespect, develop disrespect towards three jewels. For instance, in this case, three jewels. So three jewels, then you can imagine that you have fallen into that kind of situation like many times, in the previous lifetime too. So at that time, you also had like same kind of negative thoughts towards three jewels. You had the same situation. Because of that, then we are having the same kind of situation. We're having like same situation, ongoing kind of like same situation. If you let it go this time, so if you're not able to control your mind at this time, so it's going to happen again in the future. Even though you make a prayer, even sincerely kind of like a prayer to jewels, it's not going to affect again. So because we have had like same situation previous lifetime, and we were not able to generate like a strong trust or like belief into jewels. Because of that lack of belief, lack of trust, then we have like similar kind of situation again. If you go through the same situation, if you develop kind of negative thoughts towards that the jewels, it's going to happen again in the future. That's why so we need to, instead of like developing like a negative thoughts towards them, so you should you try to stop prevent to develop that kind of negative thoughts towards the jewels. Then in the future, then if you make a prayer with like sincerely kind of prayer, then it works. It works and it affects.
Teacher, Sanjay said it, Sanjay, Chida Sanjay said it, Nandu Kanga, no Sanjay, the Sanjay, Mount Pana, to do Yari, Sanjay sing it. Tati Sanjay did Tanda Kabatil, Jevin, Kabatil, Sanjay Kwaji, Sunjay, Sidupje, Sunjay, Kwaji, Sanjay. 아니 시작부터 봤지. 상계 시주는 그랬어. 개버들이야 상계 동 준비야. 제일 선에 단다 상계 숨제 시도제 아니
무슨 코아지.
상계 코아지 숨제 시도제. 아니 시작부터 봤지. 단다라는 상계 단대티 템바티 상계 샤제투 템바르바 그래서 상계 시준 심브레 단도 상계 아니 남디 나바티 타치 장도임브레 타티케바 두 야토 링부 스탠다드 연주 야토 링부 싱이티임브레 야토 링부 세티 마마마요네타 selujumbo patutugiyare yadorim tine selujubani yayadini selugeti patutugi geti jusuni chijun jangu juningere aranju sanje gite tembatile chabada sambadi yabujerina ni maubana chijun jangu temba tariyunju sambani khoji thomali geyada ani tile chi 주기념에 그래서 그래 어딘데스 주기 거기 동막이 계약이 뒤에 저서 상계세티 어디래 상계세티 컨디션에서는 담도 아란도나 신체 아니 강행용 아니 대화용기 그 강행용기 तातिने सांगेगी अनि कांगे तिसेगी अनि तिगी दुगी कांगे से आगे थल कार्य रे तो तिगी दुया के थल कार्य ते कांगे सेगी चेने अनि सांगी जी कांगे थज्जा देवे सांगी को वासिंग तिनी रे Just Kurangi Landuna Shabanashi Deviana and Gange said to you, Kurang Gange Seati Gange to Sigi, Gange to Ganges Chegi, but was Kurang Chain. Naranzo Landuna Shabra, just Sanjay Seti, Mazugi, Ushita Nich. Sanjay Seti, Ushita Nich killing it, or the instant. Sanjay Temba de Sanjay Shi Jun service. Gava de la Sanjay Tonguya, it's just a mountain. Madame just Sanjay Digi Temba to Tabata somebody just on a Sanjay Mountain, Sanjay Chambe Tamba the jazz, or the Dinima Tinilish, the castle Jari.
So now, so here, the three gems, three precious gems, right? On three jewels, three ratnas. So one of the ratna is like Buddha. So we consider Buddha as one of the ratna. So then when we talk about Buddha, so I say the Buddha is something that is you should not imagine, you should not think that this is out there. It's like kind of like a powerful kind of source. And it's like coming to exist like without any depend on anything, like coming to exist. It's over there all the time. You should not think that. So for instance, as an ordinary person ourselves, we believe that we do have Buddha nature. So like Buddha nature, there's a potential that can become Buddha in the future if you're able to facilitate. If you bring all the conditions for that mind, so there's a possible Buddha within yourself. Okay, so then you should imagine when you talk about Buddha, so we should imagine that kind of Buddha. Okay, so then in general, like in general, loose kind of explanation, if we talk about Buddha, right? Buddha. So we believe in this era there will be a thousand Buddha. Okay, there will be 1,000 Buddhas going to appear in this world. Okay, so then we already had like 4 Buddhas. So the last Buddha was like Shakyamuni. And the future Buddha, next Buddha is a Maitreya. It's called Maitreya. So Maitreya is coming into this world when we have, when a human being have the 80,000 years of lifespan. Okay, life, kind of like. But right now we have like 100 years, right? 100 years lifespan. So 80,000 years lifespan. So then, if you look careful ourselves, we are really fortunate in like some aspect, because we had a chance to expose, we had a chance to practice Shakyamuni's Buddha, the teaching. So one of the benefit of doing this teaching and practicing his teaching, Shakyamuni's teaching, Shakyamuni teaching, is that there's like one of the facility or we have like a really great chance to see the future Buddha, Maitreya. So this is one of the benefit. So and also Buddha, and also these are the external kind of understanding of Buddha. And also again, so the Buddha should not think that there's something. It's like it's a really powerful source out there. We seek help from them. So you should not think that Buddha is in a combination of like 4 bodies, 4 enlightened bodies. Okay, so that body is achievable. Body can obtainable for us. We do have that kind of potential to achieve that kind of enlightened state. So it is within us. So you should imagine when we talk about Buddha. So you should imagine that kind of Buddha.
That is that choose the Chugunjo Seti Sanjiri Sumbi Lapta Lungi choose Ani Tobe choose Lungi choose Sanjiri Lapjana Shabtiri. So Lungi choose. That Tobe choose Lunga choosing Jevaladini and Ran dead to Shabtu Tobe choose here. Just choose Chugunjo Seti. That Nazuki. Mune community Chugunjo di Chugunjo di Gamus. Just Mune community Chugunjo di Karasana Rangi Chola Yamne Jenny, Nesola Rang Sola Medriati Rangi Yamne Jenny, Yensonde Tarkuya. Timagine Tisa Chukunjo said the government Nesole Gamini Chukunjo. Ni Kuala Gamini Chukunjo. What did the injury? Tisa, the Chukunjo Getchi shooting. Chukunjo the Getchi shooting. The Ida Karesni Rangi Karesuri. Yamune the Chukunjo the injury. The Godan Kares Rangi Chu the Yamneche. Yamneche in any coordination to Millie Turkey. Just Chukunjo sing it. Government Chukunjo sing it is here.
So then I forgot one thing. So in the previous section, let me say, and when you look at the Buddha Shakyamuni's case, Buddha Shakyamuni's, right? Buddha Shakyamuni's. So he was like us, he was once in time he was like us. He has like a lot of problems, all the difficulties and everything, and he tried to overcome his own difficulties by himself. So he tried to stick like a different kind of method and all kind of method, and he found like many different methods, different skillful kind of method to overcome his own problems. Then he he overcome all of his problems. Then he become Buddha. So something like that. So if you follow him, so similar way, then yes, we have a chance to become like him. So he knows how to go through this kind of problem, how to overcome this kind of problem, because he already had that kind of situation, that kind of experience. That's why he's really, trustworthy to rely on, to follow somebody, like follow him. So if you do that, then there's a great chance to become like him. So and also the second, three jewels, right? Three precious gems, okay, and three jewels. So second is Dharma, right? Dharma jewel, Dharma gem or Dharma jewel. So there are three jewels. Three jewels we believe and we consider them as a protector. Okay, protector. These are the source of protector that protects us from like suffering. So then among the three objects, three precious objects, so the actual protector is Dharma itself. Okay, it's the instruction of the Buddha. So there are like two suffering, two types of suffering. You can divide into like two types of suffering: sufferings of lower realms and suffering of samsara. Okay, both of them are like so only Dharma practice. Okay, only Dharma practice can help you to overcome, help you to escape from that kind of situation. So only Dharma can do that. So that's why. So we consider Dharma is the actual protector. If you do practice, it helps you to overcome your problem, the sufferings of the samsara and sufferings of these lower realms. Only Dharma practice can help you. This is why we call it the actual Dharma practice, protector.
Le sangbu che suna le ngimba che suna ma dubruwa le ngimba che suna jebu dungi ngurwa le sangbu che suna ani jebu dewa ngurwa tinashi le sangbu che suna ani nya suna da kuali jodu yure jasa maram de chugu jo se le sangbu chodi le sangbu ti Rangi Pierva. Rangi Lea Sambuchana, Rangi Pieri, Rangi Lang Nembachana, Rang Maton or Chierva. Yakyo Paching, Le Sambuterva, Tinashita, Chukunjoti, Le Sambutanashi, Raya, Jumni, Muneti, Chukunjoti, Tigaresina. I took down the Rangi Yamnechenik. What it is, that is.
So then you said like a protector, ultimate protector is Dharma, right? Dharma. So you can, if you put it into like a really simple word, you can think of it, all the virtuous actions are, are the Dharma, or they are protector. You can imagine that too. So this is true. So if you do like a mystic, if you engage in non-virtuous actions, that brings the sufferings in the future. it's not going to protect you. So if you do the virtuous action, virtuous deeds, that actually brings happiness in the future. That protects you from the lower realms and the samsara, suffering of the samsara and suffering of the lower realms. So that only. So that means like it's totally dependent on your own practice. And so if you do practice of like dharma, then it helps you.
아치 군조스제. 근데 긴두 군조스야데 산지가 랍전낭 샤바티 베 송교진이 조럽디 긴두 군조스야. 그러니까 산지 군조 디페나 개가 비팀 송예가 저디 산지 군조디제. 개가 비팀디 최군조스야 되제. 팀을 송교 배 야부진이디 긴두 군조스지. 디사 만남들 개가 팀들 숨디 야부데지 칼도를 로샤나 디기 연구여봐 개가 팀들 마틴 베체스나 니 강에 티리여봐 디네시다 최근조세야 됐다 그래서 지 최근에 랍전 나니디 산제제 이 랍제디 근데 개그 팀들 뒤집어래 뒤집어래 뒤맞아버려 산적이 다디 지 산적이 랍지나 샤버디 베 처성 공숨지에 베 송급진이 또딜라 긴두군조세라 먼저 감이 야다더니 푸나도 그랬지도 어디 감이 야다더니 지 제서제로 쭉 긴두군조세가
So then the third ratna, third or the precious gems is the sangha member, right? Sangha member is like a role model for us. We can look at them and we can understand the teachings of the Buddha and so forth, something like that. So then you can imagine of like a kingdom, okay, very like good kingdom, so a good kingdom. There's a king, right? There's a king and there's a rules and there's a law, right? Law within that kingdom. So the king is like a ruler, he makes laws for people to have like kind of like harmony between like people, right? People, citizens, yeah. So then the king is like a Buddha, okay? He makes rules and for the sake of the citizen or sake of the people, right? He makes rules for people. Then the rules is like a dharma, the dharma. So if you follow the rules like properly, if you don't break the rules or laws, then you never go to like difficulties. You never suffer. Okay. So then the sangha is like the person who is following the rules really properly. So then they never get into any trouble and like difficulties, something like that. So we copy them, and if you do exactly how they do, how they carry their like laws and practices, then we will have the similar effect, and we will be happy. For instance, a kingdom, then you will be happy citizen, sort of like that. So something like that.
diri da kunjo sumsedi je. Dani zawadi dani kunjo konan tembar jas. Da chinje da danji nye di je di sanje kunjo le ma je kunjo li ji ma je kunjo gi jesu ma ju ba ma je ba yin sa jesu kunjo gi jesu ju ne kun ande zawadi labjana shi je ni ma je ba yin sa nye ba di ju ba. dani kunjo konan tembar jas da chinje 아니 접시에 저가 산길 접 아니 군조선다 배 코나라 네 접주기 새로 접주스 아니 진짜 내니 그래지 중에 접주스디 군조선다 주기 다 진짜
So then the verse is hereafter let's place our exclusive reliance on Buddha, his teaching, and his those in his fort, right? So then we have realized that the lack of our trust, lack of our faith in like three jewels, then we have all kinds of problems. So from now on, like to prevent that kind of situation in the future and in difficulties, then you convince yourself. So like so relying on the Buddha, carrying on his teaching, respect those objects. Then, in order to bring happiness in the future, so you just make that kind of sort of commitment or like something like a promise.
That did change to it.
So any questions?
So both of these verses seem to be telling us that we have doubt in part because of past karma, and corresponding result or behavioral result of having doubt. So we have to, when we don't find happiness, it's because even though our prayers might be sincere in words, our activities are not matching our words. Our activities are more toward worldly activities and looking for happiness in worldly activities instead of Dharma activities. So our blessings and the benefit of our prayers and of our Guru's teachings are equal to how much effort we put into the activities of those teachings.
Okay. What was the question then?
More confirming what I'm hearing, I guess.
Oh, you're just making confirm.
Yeah, that it's the blessings of the teachings really depend on us. It depends on how well we actually put them into practice. So if we find ourselves feeling unhappy or not or having doubt, then that should be a reminder for us to actually put more effort into practice.
Okay. So this is the again teaching is to the Rinjo Chiasia, this is Serwa. Tapena this Moyuya the Carles and Dire Takurang Takas, Korang Quag Lane, Takwad, Tata Red in those and Candida Shoe, Arsena Pensana. Tapena this is how much of the Melam Rajab Chiava in a Melam Rajab Chiava in a, then I want to chair the chair on zero. Namju seminar, remember, Namdara is having Chadani out of the cheating chair and the day and shade and the chair when insani, the Malam Tapas taking me about all the house. Yeah, I think my word that the chair did the nether was Rasu. And the idea we actually do some of them. Hello there. He chair down. The children was just course.
David, that's Tadenigo Surang Chitan Tigi Maras. Any told in Name Nam Joamatilla, any Kunjuri Jimacheva, Kinjaka Lapchella, Tinjo Machache, Biggie temperatures. Any Tadech Susuman Takriti, Menumti, Taviati, somebody. The somebody Tabaji Ugiamara, the is Zoti Nama it is.
So yes, so Mr. Whatever in general speaking, right, whatever you experience in this moment, mainly actually it's like the result of your previous karma. So previous karma. So then so there are, and also in terms of like making a prayer, right? Making a prayer. When we make a prayer, there are always defects, sort of like there's it's not a pure kind of prayer always. There are like many other things around our prayer, sort of like prayer. It's not totally pure, sort of like. So because of that result, also we do have, and also we didn't have like a strong or like pure kind of faith, belief in our Buddha, and also we never follow his instruction, his teaching, like perfectly. So that could be the result of those bad karmas too. These lines are actually talking about this kind of thing.
I'm going to try to be very clear.
Okay.
So, if you're in a bad situation, let's say your job, and that negativity is a result of your bad karma. Is it ever appropriate, or when is it appropriate in dealing with that to leave the situation versus staying there to learn?
Leave the situation means like.
Being like retreat, like quit.
Oh, good, okay. Or deal with
your
this.
job, or
Okay.
you say, I'm here because I'm supposed to be learning something, but when does it become appropriate to say, this learning isn't worth it?
Okay. This is this is some kind
I'm happy at work, right?
강의 in 지기로 앞에는 내가 진짜 상담 마셔야 나서 내가 진짜 지금 상담 많이 나. 내가 또 내가 진짜 들려도 많이 말해 강의로 뭐 티로 왔어. 다이 뭐 저. 그때는 지 수수들이 고급 심체 아 수수들이 다딩아 로종도 지 정달도 지 산제 고급 심체 도시는 다들이야. 오지 잡지 대대야로 오지처럼 대치하고 대치 아니 내 멤버제 다 딩녀를 주는데 때 욕셔서 뱉고 남의 거로 땅지 야마셔 다 드셔야지 다 드니요 와 드니요 다 딩소 뒤에 간데 좀 지를 제국을 냠는 간데 지를 제국이어서 어디서요 어디서요 드니요라 에면 내가 세워다 녀가들이 잡된 지금 드셔는 다 녀가 지금 줘서 야 녀가들이 수수리 당도 렌치 양 거야 코가리야 수수리 로종도 정달도 미치네 내 우지가 내려야죠 니도 지어라 지나래
지단 지내다 지 내가 제스티 그바 치니 내가 제스티 그바 치니 내가 제스티 먼저 남배 슈니 제베 마게심제스 라르시라 거지 치니 제딜레 마스 생각나네 백까지 준비시라 이기 내가 제스티 지버레스 시다 거지 준비 바지 딜레스 보야티 지버레스 다 딜레스도 좀 강에 채버들 다 강에 채도 좀 바지 딜레스도 강에 채도 좀 바지 단지 나시제 심제 강에 두수 네티 거주 버셔 되지데 딘디 제비나 제다 가르수레 가르수레 교토 침부기 야리스 두개 야리데 디 강에 지 강에 아 마일 메드 가르쳐 버렸어요. 강에 되지 저를 때는 팔 저국이나 로국이나 다 가가려 봐. 이 강에 전에 강에 세트위는 지게려 봐. 로네 강에 전에 야도서 샤레가 시다지레 강에 퇴기려 봐. 야대 강에 퇴수야 아두샤네 로네 야메려 봐. 강에 들 동네 제니 지 샘상부 그게 투네 디시 강에 세두려 봐. 강에 우네 강에 아니 셴게 강에 상구야리 인데 치트 랑기 강에 자야 삼나마담베제 셴라 강에 그제 치기야리 자미티 디날 강에 라리 치어가 강에 체니 그제야리 두수삼네 아니 지 랑기 강에 디 충르 다야라버지다 안 두수삼네 두수기 강에 디 야셈 상부 두수기 강에 삼발데니 아니 야셈 상부기야 네티게 강에 두세야 쇼세 대달은 민주가 쇼세요이네 아니 시작으로 좀 침부리스 제사 삼루야 부당루야스
So, instead, when you have a situation like that in a job place, so we need to look from like a different angles, sort of like, first we need to look from like very wider kind of like view, sort of like. So, for instance, we believe, like in this system, we believe all the sentient beings like your mother, right? They've been your mother, so. and our responsibility is to repay their kindness. So we have received many kindness from our mother sentient beings. So you look from that side. So then, whenever you go to work, so you can think that you're helping to sentient beings. You're giving them their kindness back. So like repaying their kindness. You can think of that. So then also we should think from like a really practical level as well. So if you have if you encounter with some problems with like some individual and in a job place anywhere, so then if you escape from them, if you just ignore them, just leave the job, sort of like if you have a job at a place, if you have some conflict with this your employee or somebody, then you should leave the job. So you need to find another job, right? So this is not definite. It's not sure that you're not going to have that kind of situation in another job. So you may have like the same you may encounter with the same situation in another job place as well. So that's why it's like, so you cannot say it's going to be like all come just by leaving, leaving behind your job while you're doing that job. The best method is just so when you have problem situation, just try to solve the situation from yourself, and also with the employee to try to just come up with like a right solution at that place. Try not to leave, try not to escape from that place. Don't escape from that place, sort of like. Once in a while there's occasion that you have to leave. It's really intense. It becomes very intense. This is a different case. So it's like a minor kind of step thing. So you should deal with them. So for instance, like as a practitioner, so you can think of like whatever you have experienced like difficulty at that moment. You can think like, so you just take it up. You just accept the problem or difficulty or suffering at that moment. And so for instance, like Tonglen practice, right? Tonglen practice, we should describe that. Imagine there are many people have like the same difficulty, same problem, same situation. So so make some prayer for them, just accept the blame or whatever at that moment, and make a prayer for other people to not have that kind of situation. And still even though you accept this problem, blame, whatever, but your mind will be always positive. So you think like the other, you take upon your blame yourself and imagine for others to have that kind of problems. So you go through this kind of series like a meditation sort of like. Then this is the limited thing. This is the skillful way to overcome your problem.
That makes sense. It's every day though. I'm just kidding.
Kalau kangen dengan gimana apa gitu?
kangen di karusure, kangen di pa film cewek ya, kangen di medupat kangen di be sosiolog medupat cimu cikena, di kangen celu dulu. Kangen di be medupat cimu medupat kangen di kangen cewek samsara. Kangen di cewek mampu yuji samsara. Kangen di cewek di karusure, jenis rang mana mandi bayi, tendi inggu rang be samlu cimbu cita, rang samlu be cita yang erota, samlu cimbu cita yang tidak samlu dine cete malai betul, ini kangen cegera, tapi rang le samlu tanggu ya, rang samlu kerja tanggu tu tanggu, ngone kangen itu mendo, berarti sudah samlu tanggu ya.
So, his first response was like, just be friendly with your problems, and say, okay? So then we said, accept all the problems. And we said, you shouldn't imagine that this is something, whatever you have experienced, like difficulties, right? Difficulty. You shouldn't imagine that is something, it's like a random kind of experience and random kind of situation. You shouldn't think that. These are the situation, these are the problems. So we will experience, we will encounter. So you just be aware that all the problems are out there. Only some problems you haven't met at this moment, but some other time it's going to come back to you. So you just imagine that. You just always be ready for your own problems. You see, no? And also, so sometimes problems, problems or difficulties is not only from the outside. Sometimes there are many things we make problems. If someone throws like an idea, really great idea, you don't agree with them. If you throw some kind of idea, so they don't agree with you, but they have their own vision, you have your own vision. That's why you have like
Disconnect.
not disconnect. I mean like
Conflict.
conflict. Yeah, disagree each other, right? Unagree or disagree? Disagree each other. It doesn't mean he's wrong and that person is wrong. You're right. Okay, so then you should. So there are many situations. So you should look really careful and try to find out why you're having this conflict, this kind of problem. And sometimes you'll find there are many lack of understanding from your side too. So just look really careful.
Rinpoche mentioned that the most important practice of this teaching was Tonglen. Should we, after we learn the verses in class, should we meditate on the verse and then practice Tonglen? And your heat mentioned also the
This is the Dinalo Tonglen dish catching bush wrestling in Sung Tonglen the Sibiru Mona Children's Nova. Tonglen people, Shazan, Kurutan Yamen to some Chichigden and Tonglen Chukon, Chichigden, Tonglen Chukon, they children.
No, yes. Good. Sigri goes to Kangi read Sherba. She can't get here. Can't get Sigri goes Rang Kanga Ser. She Tabi Dan Sherba. Kangi Charani, that is said to the Kangi did that is said of the duties, that changes the nature of Sierra. Just a Kangi Tinibini, Tongue Kumea. Kangi did Kangi cadet in a Chile, Kangi Tindiarity, Kangi did head of it. Any simply tongue of Mabuyari, the Sugan to Sudan Chilea, and the Rangi di Patea. Imagine that. Ide chu malene ni chitanji ba kenge lam to terwase kange tinde shala kange tinde chu kange tu nge ti kreba chu krushu ba chu shala tinde kange mi chu shu chen ta ti komja ora tinde chigire.
So that is right. In this particular text, is actually describe the suffering or the situation, difficulties, really specifically. It localized, it really create like really scenario, something it's like happened. It could be happening to you in the future, right? So if you go through this kind of reading or like meditation, so just imagine there are like many problems, and also it's like specify all the problems in these verses. So you just bring up that kind of idea in your mind, just imagine you are into that kind of situation in that moment, and how do you deal with this kind of problem? And also it gives you the method to overcome this kind of problem. It tells you what are the causes, what are the method to overcome this kind of problem in here and future and all the times. So then you just go through this kind of meditation, right? So then just imagine you're in that kind of situation, go through meditation, then you have like experience of like kind of like uneasy, unhappy kind of state of mind. Imagine that can bring up that kind of suffering, sort of like suffering. Then go to like Tonglen practice. Tonglen practice is like taking up on all the whatever you're focusing, like a particular the suffering. Just imagine bringing up and taking up on yourself all the suffering essentially. So again, and you go like standing back and go those kind of exercise. You do that, and also again, so the Tonglen practice is kind of advanced practice, and also it needs really like courage to do that. So then if you're not comfortable with this kind of meditation, then still there's another way of doing that is just taking suffering into the path, right? It's called like this taking suffering into the path. So like instead of dwelling on your own suffering, just transform that idea of that thoughts, negative thoughts, into positive thoughts. Means when you have suffering, then imagine there are many people have like same situation, same suffering. Then imagine and wishing them to free from that kind of suffering, wishing them to have happiness. That kind of by having your own suffering, then it actually helps you to develop a positive thoughts. Okay, you done your question? Also, you want to stop and okay, class.
Sachi
Pege Jungshi Tento Chang Deja Ninshi Ninde Genbade
Sange Shindu
Mite Purvani
Rugunanda Shinda
Jeba Cho
Yedama Gururana Videla Niyataya Chanchu
Sejo Rinpoche Maye Pana Doji
Keva Nyamba Neba
Yao Gone Kondo Tawara Sho Kowe Shingam Enda Dewa Mali Chungwene Jere Zewa Tendi Dado
Shabe Sile Vadu Tengyuji
Kamso Yune Jo Tojo Geze De Nosa Nama Rekande Seze Shama Sowa
Aya